Hi, students. So as I'm going through your papers, I'm seeing that some of you will need to revise your thesis. Your thesis needs to be very clear and strong in order to support your essay. If you don't have a strong thesis, you will feel lost and you will lose your reader during your essay. So I'm going to go over how you might revise or develop a really strong thesis. So I would suggest that you watch this video. It's a very basic way of looking at how to develop a thesis. It's really worthwhile, and I would suggest that you watch it on your own. I'm going to go through it right now, but you can go through that on your own. So what is a thesis? A thesis statement clearly identifies the topic being discussed, includes the points discussed in the paper, and is written for a specific audience. Your thesis statement belongs at the end of your first paragraph. There are some variations there, but for the most part, it sort of nails down your what you're going to support or prove in your essay. And it's usually at the end of the introduction. Use it as a guide for your reader to generate interest in your topic. It's a roadmap to your essay. So it keeps you on topic, and it also helps to guide your reader. So when a reader reads your thesis, they know what to expect in your paper. And it also guides your writing and keeps you sticking to that topic. So what does your thesis do for your paper? It helps you to narrow your specific topic so that you can do your research. You're not going off on a tangent, down a rabbit hole. You're staying focused on those subtopics that will support your claim. It establishes direction for the paper. It points toward a conclusion. It's stated in your introduction, like I said, usually at the end of the first paragraph, the end of the introduction, and always takes a stand to justify further discussion. So your HLSA thesis must contain these items. You should mention the author or the core work. You have to have a debatable claim. You must include an IB concept, and you must have subtopics. Now, I have seen theses that embed the subtopics in the claim without laying out an A, B, or C, what I'm going to prove. But I think for an essay of this length, it would really benefit you to have those subtopics specifically stated in your thesis. I think it will help to stick to your subtopics that support your claim and to help guide you and your reader in your writing and the readers following your topic. So the thesis must be stated as a debatable claim that you're going to prove. It should not be a statement of fact. So it must be something that is up for discussion. So an example of a statement of fact would be Persepolis is a graphic novel set in Iran during the Islamic Revolution. That's a fact. It can't be debated. But an example of an argument could be Persepolis is a graphic novel that represents the ravages of war and their detrimental effects on children. So some people might debate that, but you could find evidence in the novel to prove or support that. Remember, again, you have to include an IB concept. It should be stated clearly using one of these words. So make sure that you have that and that you're always working toward proving or supporting that with your evidence. Okay? The thesis must contain subtopics that will support or prove your argument. So this is an example of a thesis with those subtopics. Persepolis is a graphic novel set in Iran during the Islamic Revolution that represents the ravages of war and their detrimental effect on children through the author's personal experiences, graphic illustrations, and historical allusions. So I know as I'm writing this that my subtopic is going to be about Satrapi's personal experiences. I'm going to find evidence that show from the novel where her personal experiences go back to support this representation of the ravages of war and the detrimental effects on children, as I am with graphic illustrations and historical allusions. I'm using some literary devices here because I'm trying to show sophistication of college-level writing and that I understand literary analysis. Yes, this is an argument about content, and I think some of you have shied away from using literary language, but the bottom line is this is a language and literature course, and this is a literary analysis. It's an argument about some aspect of the literature that the author is using to prove their point, or at least you as the reader are proposing that that's what the author is doing. Okay, here's the thesis for The Great Gatsby. I put this in brackets in this essay. I will be arguing that. It just kind of gives me some grounding, but never include that. That's why I included it in brackets. I'm going to delete that later, but if that helps you to support how to develop your thesis, you might try using that. So in this essay, I'll argue, but I just start out with my thesis. Through the narrator's eyes, The Great Gatsby showcases a microcosm of the culture of gender relations in the early 20th century through character archetypes, gender-specific dialogue, and social norms within the novel. So I have my three subtopics, character archetypes, so typical male or female characters, dialogue, which I'm going to pull from the literature as my evidence, and then social norms, or things that how people would behave during that time period, during the early 20th century. And that goes back to prove the culture of gender relations. Now, it just so happens, I think all these theses have culture as their IB concept, but any of those would be fine. So this is what my introduction would look like. I've color-coded it with a topic sentence and concluding sentence, but my concluding sentence is my thesis. And then I have some facts in here that sort of summarize the novel. I would encourage you to pause this and read through this introduction. I have a hook that includes the title, author, and genre, a bridge that provides some background information to my reader about what this novel is about. I don't have to go into great detail. This is the only place you should have any summary about your novel, is in the introduction, to give some background. But really remember that most of these readers have read these novels. You don't have to go into great detail on summary. And then, of course, my introduction ends with my thesis. This is another example of a thesis. I have revised the one that is in the sample to make it a little cleaner and more specific. So Key and Peele address racial stereotypes using extended metaphors and subverted paradigms to spread awareness about the idiotic and ridiculous nature of cultural racist behavior. I kind of feel like they included culture as an afterthought, because they could have eliminated that and racist behavior would have been fine. But my subtopics, again, are extended metaphor, subverted paradigms, and then throughout they're raising awareness of the ridiculousness of racist behavior. Okay, that's their thesis. This is their introduction. I took out this inquiry question, and I saw a lot of you included your inquiry question in your introduction. Please eliminate that. I think it takes away rather than adds to your introduction. Please pause this and read through this introduction. This is pretty much as the student had written it. And again, a topic sentence. They include some background about Key and Peele. I would wonder, if I were a reader, where they got this information. Maybe you could cite something, although usually we don't have sources in our introduction. But if you're citing specific information about the piece, you might want to include a citation to support that. And then, of course, ending with their thesis. Okay, the last thesis is also from a student sample. Through the analysis of Satrapi's artistic style, narrative technique, and use of symbolism, the graphic novel Persepolis promotes more intercultural understanding than divisiveness. So again, they have their three subtopics, and their debatable claim comes after the three subtopics. So it doesn't really matter which order you do that in. You can have your claim first. Persepolis promotes this using these techniques, or vice versa. It does not matter which order you do that in, but I would suggest either, like I said, mentioning the author or the work, and then your three subtopics, and then your debatable claim. Okay, and again, this is what it would look like in an introduction. They have the title, author, and genre in here. They have a bridge giving you some background, and they actually did quote a source. And I would, if I'm referring to anything outside my own personal knowledge, include that source, even if it's in the introduction. And then I saw this used in some of your introductions where you say readers can see why. I would eliminate that as well, and just through an analysis of the author's artistic style, technique, narrative technique, and use of symbolism, the graphic novel promotes intercultural understanding. I don't even know that this than divisiveness is necessary, but it does sort of set up a counterclaim if you want to have a counterclaim in your paper, and perhaps that's what the student does later on in the paper. Okay, so just to review quickly, you do need to make sure that your HL essay has all of these items: either the author or the core work mentioned, a debatable claim, an IB concept, and a subtopic. Go back and check your thesis, and I'll be asking you all to check each other's theses to make sure that you're including that, because your paper will fall apart if you don't have a strong thesis. Okay, happy HL essay writing, and I will see you soon.